The radio crackled, then silence. A single flashlight flickered in the darkness. Footsteps running, or something else. The wind howled, carrying a sound no one could identify. Shouts echoed, but they made no sense. Then the ground shook, a metallic screech, then nothing. The men froze, hearts pounding, breath visible in the cold night air. Questions raced faster than fear itself. Where were their comrades? Who or what had caused this? They called again, no response, nothing. In that moment, every trained instinct screamed danger, but danger of what? And why now? A shadow passed over the perimeter, and a cold realization settled in. Something had happened, something no one was prepared for. By dawn, nothing remained the same, and yet the world outside knew nothing. How could such an event simply vanish? What could be so terrible that even the military chose to erase it from history? It was the year insert war year context. Tensions were at their peak. Global powers were locked in a struggle that threatened millions. Every outpost, every unit played a role in a larger, invisible chess game. The location itself was critical, remote, strategically positioned yet isolated. Soldiers stationed there faced harsh conditions, bitter cold, relentless drills, and the constant knowledge that a single mistake could cost lives. Daily life was structured, disciplined, and predictable. Yet, beneath that rigid routine, fear lingered. Soldiers whispered about unexplained events, sightings that didn't make sense, and signals lost in transmission. Orders were clear, but rumors spread faster than commands. The weight of responsibility pressed on everyone's shoulders. Lives hung in balance, but the true nature of the threat remained unseen. And then, in this tension-soaked environment, something happened. Something that would defy explanation. This was no ordinary military mishap. The consequences would ripple far beyond the immediate, and for 40 years, no civilian would ever know. Among the soldiers stationed there was insert main character or unit. Young, disciplined, trained to the edge of endurance. Days began before dawn. Physical training, weapons drills, and endless inspections. Every mistake punished, every rule etched into memory. Yet beneath the uniformed exterior, fear and fatigue whispered. The men were not machines. They laughed, argued, and sometimes cried. Bonds were formed in shared struggle and shared silence. Their routines created a fragile sense of security. Patrols, check-ins, drills, and quiet moments under the stars. But even the most steadfast soldier felt it, the creeping unease that something was wrong. No one spoke openly. The rules forbade it. And yet, small hints of anxiety were visible in subtle gestures. A tightened grip on a rifle, a glance over the shoulder, a pause before answering a call. This is the human side of the story. The soldiers were trained to face danger, but nothing in their training could prepare them for what came next. It began subtly. Radios failed to transmit. Messages vanished into the ether. Equipment malfunctioned in ways that defied logic. At night, shadows moved where no one should be. Alarms sounded with no cause. Guards reported whispers, but no one else heard them. Even the seasoned soldiers felt unease creeping into their bones. Small accidents, tripped wires, misplaced supplies multiplied. The tension was palpable, yet no explanation came. Orders from headquarters remained calm, almost oblivious, and yet something was deeply wrong. Unseen eyes seemed to track every movement. Footsteps echoed in empty halls. Lights flickered as if warning of an invisible presence. And then the signals stopped entirely. The calm before the storm was deafening. Something was coming and no one knew what it was or how to stop it. Night had fallen, thick and suffocating. The air was unusually still, too still, carrying only the faint hum of distant machinery. The men moved along the perimeter, routine patrols, but something felt off. Every shadow seemed heavier than it should be, every gust of wind suspiciously sharp. Then it began. A sudden metallic clatter echoing through the darkness. The sound bounced off the walls of the compound, seemingly coming from everywhere at once. Soldiers froze mid-step, rifles tightening in their grip. Nothing about this sound was ordinary, yet they couldn't place why. Footsteps approached, but not the controlled, disciplined steps of trained men. These were uneven, urgent, almost wrong. A flashlight beam cut across the darkness, but it trembled in the hands of the soldier holding it. Something, or someone, moved too fast to follow. Shadows twisted and disappeared where they shouldn't have. Orders were shouted, but the responses were chaotic. Names were called, but voices came from unfamiliar directions. Radios emitted nothing but static, cutting off every attempt to communicate. A low hum, unidentifiable in origin, began under the soldiers' feet. The ground vibrated slightly, just enough to unsettle them, though no machinery was operating. Confusion spread like wildfire. One man ran toward the sound of shouting, thinking it was a fellow soldier in need, but the person he sought was nowhere to be found. A door slammed violently behind him, yet no one was there. The air smelled faintly of ozone, acrid and unnatural, though equipment tests confirmed no electrical faults. Every corner held uncertainty. Every shadow seemed alive. Soldiers clustered, scanning, pointing, whispering, but the whispers turned to silence as quickly as they were spoken. Movements became jerky, uncoordinated, as instinct battled training. A sudden flash of light illuminated the courtyard, followed by a loud, resonant clang. Soldiers flinched, thinking the ceiling might collapse or that some unknown threat had arrived overhead. Weapons were raised, hearts pounded. Breath came in sharp bursts. They moved, but the terrain felt unfamiliar, as if the layout had shifted subtly while they weren't looking. Then came the disorienting sounds, footsteps echoing in empty halls, distant voices calling orders that no one gave. Equipment fell without explanation. Radios buzzed with phantom voices. The men's senses were being tested to their limits, every instinct screaming that something was happening, yet no one could define what. Panic began to creep in. Soldiers broke formation, calling out for their comrades, but the answers never came. Every attempt to regroup was met with dead ends, doors that led nowhere, corridors that seemed longer or shorter than memory dictated. And then silence, a sudden, absolute stillness. The chaos ended not with clarity but with absence. Those who had been visible moments before were gone. Some equipment lay abandoned, untouched, as if everyone had vanished mid-action. The radios went completely dead. No footsteps, no shouts, no breathing, only the wind whispering through empty structures. Dawn approached slowly. Yet when it came, it revealed an impossible scene. The perimeter was intact, yet some men were missing entirely. Footprints stopped abruptly. Vehicles were parked haphazardly, doors open. Reports would later describe an eerie calm, a sense of something unfinished lingering in the air. Those who remained could only recount fragments, fleeting glimpses of movement, sounds without sources, shadows that didn't align with any object. Each story conflicted with the next, creating a tapestry of confusion and dread. And the world beyond the base, unaware. As if the night had swallowed the incident whole, leaving only the men who experienced it to wonder silently if the truth would ever be told. Questions multiplied faster than answers. What had happened? Where had their comrades gone? Why had nothing outside noticed? And most chilling of all, would it happen again? At first light the base was silent, too silent. The chaos of the previous night had vanished as completely as it had arrived. But for those who remained, the aftermath was terrifying. Faces drained of color, hands shaking, eyes darting. Everyone knew something extraordinary had happened, and yet no one could explain it. The military response was immediate. Officers issued rapid orders, teams mobilized, and search parties fanned out across the perimeter. Every structure was checked, every corner scoured. Patrols moved with practiced precision, yet a creeping unease persisted. The familiar grounds felt alien. The men's training kept them moving, but instinct screamed that this was no ordinary search. Radio teams attempted contact with units that had disappeared. Calls were repeated, sometimes shouted into the static-filled air. But the answers never came. Some signals returned ghostly fragments of voices, distorted and unreadable. Logs later recorded these anomalies, but the official reports omitted them entirely. Investigators arrived, notebooks in hand, eyes scanning every detail. They asked questions. Witnesses recounted fragmented memories, footsteps without source, lights that flickered, equipment that moved on its own. But these accounts clashed. One man's recollection contradicted another's. Notes were revised multiple times, inconsistencies left unresolved. Officers reviewed security footage. Some cameras had gone dark during the critical moments. Others recorded only brief, inexplicable flashes of light, nothing conclusive. Some images were missing altogether, later replaced with static files. Files stamped classified, names blacked out, reports marked sensitive or unfit for release. Even physical searches turned up anomalies. Footprints stopped mid-path, leading nowhere. Vehicles and equipment were found abandoned, yet perfectly intact. Certain access points showed no evidence of passage, though soldiers swore they had passed through them. Every attempt at reconstruction seemed to raise more questions than answers. Whispers circulated among the ranks. Some suggested a cover-up. Others speculated advanced experimental technology. Many feared simply speaking aloud. Yet the unease persisted, an unspoken understanding that the truth, whatever it was, had to remain hidden. Months passed. Formal investigations produced detailed reports, but each contained contradictory statements, redacted sections, and deliberate ambiguities. Memo lines were removed. Witness statements were modified. Officers instructed to maintain discretion and avoid speculation. And slowly, the incident receded from official discussion, replaced with vague notations in classified files. By the time the world would eventually hear about it, decades later, the event had already been scrubbed from collective memory. But the soldiers who survived never forgot. The echoes of that night lingered. The silence that followed, the inexplicable gaps in time, the sensation that something, or someone, had observed them. It became clear. The incident had not only been unusual, it had been intentionally concealed. And while the outside world continued unaware, those on the inside were left with fragments, contradictions, and a chilling understanding. Some events, no matter how important, are never meant to be fully explained. In the wake of the incident, countless questions remained unanswered. Official statements offered little more than vague reassurances, leaving room for speculation. Over the years, several theories have emerged, some plausible, others bordering on the impossible, yet none have been confirmed. Some researchers suggest that a classified test of experimental weapons or equipment went catastrophically wrong. Witnesses recall flashes of light, unusual vibrations, and strange electrical disturbances. Logs indicate the presence of devices not listed in official inventories. Yet, official files were later sanitized, names redacted, test records erased. The contradictions leave a shadow of doubt. If such a test occurred, why were so many aspects scrubbed? Was it truly an accident, or something more deliberate? Another theory posits that the incident resulted from enemy sabotage. Some soldiers reported strange movements near the perimeter prior to the event. Equipment malfunctions, missing personnel, and contradictory surveillance footage could suggest infiltration. However, no evidence of external entry was officially recorded. Certain witness testimonies conflict, and files hint at investigations that were abruptly terminated. The possibility remains, but certainty does not. Some experts argue that stress, fatigue, and isolation triggered a collective psychological phenomenon. Could trained soldiers under extreme tension have misinterpreted ordinary events as chaos? Multiple reports from different individuals describe identical anomalies, yet some accounts diverge dramatically. Mass hysteria could explain perception anomalies, but not missing personnel, nor the unusual damage to equipment. The theory raises more questions than it answers. Finally, there are those who consider the unexplained, phenomena beyond conventional science. Radar anomalies, strange lights, and witness reports of objects moving in impossible ways hint at the extraordinary. Some documents were classified, later vanished, or heavily redacted. Scientists and military analysts alike have debated these claims, often dismissing them, but the evidence, or absence of it, leaves a lingering sense that something unknown occurred. Each theory carries weight, yet each is fraught with contradictions. Files are missing, logs erased, and witnesses silenced, leaving only fragmented recollections and shadowy leads. For decades, these fragments have fueled debate, speculation, and unease. Ultimately, the truth remains concealed. Was it an accident, a cover-up, something beyond human understanding? Every theory has supporters and skeptics alike. And perhaps that is the point. The incident's mystery persists, preserved by secrecy, uncertainty, and the careful erasure of inconvenient truths. One thing is certain: the event left a permanent mark on those who witnessed it. The unanswered questions continue to haunt, provoking curiosity, fear, and endless theorizing. And as long as the files remain classified, as long as the witnesses stay silent, the debate will endure. The world may never know what truly happened, but the shadow of the incident remains. For 40 years, the incident remained hidden from the public. Files were sealed, names were redacted, photographs vanished, reports were rewritten. The world carried on, oblivious, while those who witnessed the events carried the memory like a shadow that never lifted. Why was it hidden? Was it fear of panic, shame over failure, or a calculated effort to control information? Perhaps all three. Perhaps something else entirely, something that no one alive can explain. Those who survived recall the event with a mixture of disbelief and fear. The silence that followed the chaos, the strange anomalies, the missing personnel, these fragments have never been fully reconciled. And the official records, they offer no clarity, only contradiction, ambiguity, and carefully maintained secrecy. Yet traces remain. A blurred photograph, a redacted memo, a fragment of a log that refuses to align with any narrative. These remnants tease the imagination, hinting at a truth just beyond reach. And so the question persists: what really happened that night? What forces were at work? And why has the world been denied the answer for so long? We may never know, but one thing is certain: the event left an indelible mark, one that continues to haunt the memories of those who were there. Perhaps you have your own theory. Perhaps the truth is still out there, waiting to be uncovered. Share your thoughts in the comments. Debate, speculate, because some mysteries demand that we ask questions, even if answers remain forever out of reach.